Needed that too, last.
I think the stream's already going live, which is hilarious. So, no, it's all right because we have the slide where we're all muted. So, oh, maybe not. 1 second. Hello, everyone. We'll be getting going in just a moment. Welcome, everybody, to the Cross Commission Saturday Night Power Hour, which we were initially not going to do this week, and because we're going to be running late, and then the game of the year just happened.
The block is hot.
So we are live. So glad that you all could join us. We'll talk about. We'll try not to spend the whole time on Syracuse, Maryland. There's a lot of other games today. Let's start with Syracuse, Maryland. No fancy graphics tonight. We're doing this on a wing and a prayer. Maryland 12.
Right.
Sorry, Maryland 13, Syracuse 12 in overtime. Bill Tierney will continue. Will have to continue to pay for his sins for introducing the goalmouth rule. But yeah, what a game! You don't get this type of stuff in February. This harkens back to the good old days of Virginia, Syracuse on a Friday night in the Dome. Hot crowd of 10,000. Magic is back.
That was a big crowd. That was a big crowd. It was loud for sure. I don't know the exact number. Well, let me see if I can carry. Or sorry, not Carrier Dome.
JMA Wireless Dome.
MCI. Micron PC.
Hey, now we are getting that microchip company coming in. Have we started the clock, by the way?
I have, yeah. We're
awesome.
rolling.
Usually Q's tweets out the crowd number after the third quarter.
I'm just looking at. So I just have a picture up here. Can I share my screen on this?
Yes, you can. I think.
Okay. Cool. Let's try it. This is like just the first thing when I was trying to look. It's from at CNY 1985. Sorry about the loss. This is from Twitter.
Let's see. All right, 1 sec. Let's. I'm just gonna add a.
That's my oven, by the way.
That's how you know it's hot.
Yeah. So we got the TV sideline looks like the lower bowl looks 80% full.
And yeah, one sec, keep that up. I'm trying to get it up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. NDI source. Sorry, that's not it. Sorry, we're just doing this all kind of on the fly. There we go, shared screen. There we go. So here we go. There's the tweet. We have it up.
Awesome. Yeah. So the lower bowl on this is like the TV. I think that's the TV side. The far end on the picture looks like 80% full, maybe 70%, and then I don't know what this but looks reasonably full on the non-TV end. So that's a pretty you know crowd.
Yeah.
From my being able to tell. I don't know. If you said I'll stop sharing now. You said that what was the crowd at the last one these two teams played, which was the
2022 game.
The gate retirement, the Wisnowski's return.
There was a ring ceremony, or there was some other like a third thing. Yeah, definitely. It was like a multi-prong attack in terms of like celebrations for Syracuse. But yeah, I think it was like 8,400, 8,600. But that's what was my estimate. If like they got around that number or 9,000 or more, then definitely it's going to be a really good crowd. And it just sounded like
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean. It sounded like early aughts,
early teens,
Desco years. You know what I mean? When it was just rocking in the dome, and thinking of a lot of just because Maryland and Syracuse didn't play a lot yearly, but I was thinking of those like Virginia Syracuse games where it was just like electric atmosphere, especially at the dome.
Exactly
where,
that vibe. I feel.
Games were always like one goal. Yeah, we all know the stats. It was like crazy. It was
and that's how
30 games in a row. It was like the even number of goals for both.
No, and that's what it felt. Yeah, and that's what this felt like. I think with the whole vibe, and those were like the type of games where like Syracuse, they lost in overtime to Virginia, but it still felt like an amazing game. Where you still felt good after it. I mean, obviously with the last call.
I mean, I didn't want to go all Rob Lowe NFL hat, but I was like, you guys got to feel good of that. I mean, Jake it's still a young team with guys coming back from injury, like in a hostile environment. And Ryan, like you went toe to toe with essentially the standard there of like, and like arguably like 6 years ago, right? Was it what did that happen? 2017, that goal that Denver, the tyranny. So it was like 6 years ago. That would have been a game-winning goal for you, right? So,
thank you very much, Bill Tierney.
Yeah,
continuing to screw Syracuse from the coaches.
You know what? That's justice for Kyle Wharton. So, and shout out to Kyle Wharton because
that's a reference.
That is a reference.
That's a reference right there.
At Alexi's wedding, it was so funny because like his sister's boyfriend was at the wedding. Like, what's Kyle Wharton? It's like roommate, and they just like I hear you're into lacrosse. I was like, yeah, definitely. He's like, oh, you want I would just talk to Hop. He's like, oh, my one roommate. He's like, you may have known he's a little younger than me. He's like, his name's Kyle, and I'm thinking of all the Kyles. And then he's like, yeah, he had a really hard shot, and I was like, Kyle Wharton? It's like, yeah. He's like, he had this one goal. He's like, I forget this team in Maryland where he broke the net. I was like, yeah, no, I definitely know exactly what you're talking about.
I've referred to this multiple times.
I was like, it's really cool. I was like, yeah, no, I'm definitely familiar. But inside, I was like, oh yeah, you kidding me? Like, let's just go to the balcony. We can keep talking about this for like another 20 minutes.
Oh man, I know. It was great. Like, Maryland had a goal pretty similar to this. I mean, the Army game, and not exactly because like there wasn't the push element to it, but like the Q's thing, I guess, like there's no real argument on the push. Like, it's not a push.
Yeah, he was started his dive before there was any contact with the defender.
The argument.
Why do we have this rule in place?
And I don't want to like. Well, I don't want to waste time on this because like, look, it should be a goal. It's not. What we should be talking about is how freaking awesome the game was. So like, this is my point: is that like. The ball's in the goal already. And like the way we think of it is like, all right, if the ball's in the goal, like, and he didn't step in the crease, like before, well, then it should be a goal, you know? So, Maryland had one, yeah, just like that with like, I think it was Gary Gibbons, like in the Army game, like it was right before the end of the third quarter where like he like slid and like, the ball went in, but like, he slid into the goal mouth. He didn't even make contact with the goalie. And like, it would have been a big goal for Maryland. It would have put him up like either 1 or 2 or something like that. Didn't, of course, thought, it's like, yeah, no, if there's any solace for Cuse fans, it just allows them to hate Bill Chair anymore. So, yeah. But yeah, the game was just, I mean, unbelievable. Like the intensity, the vibe in the, fourth quarter. It was amazing. The way it just picked up was really like, that's when I was like, how is this February? Like, right? It's like, because, the second quarter, I mean, Maryland, I said it, I tweeted out, I'm like, Maryland first quarter was fantastic. They played great offense. I'm like, this is not the question I had. The question is like, they've done this. I've seen this before. Like, they have these great first quarters, and then in the second quarter, something like, it's like, it's like they're like a football team. Like they have like the script. You script the first 15 plays, and it goes great, and then it's like, okay, now the script's out the window, and we just kind of gotta, you go with the flow of the game, and something just, it's not there. I think what's not there is simply that talented players on offense, or like Safe said, young guys, and then Eric Molliver, who's coming back from like exploding his knee into like to 1 million people, can, like difference makers. Erk's up towards the end started. I mean, like he started to, he looked he was starting to take the game over. But and so like Maryland gets in that kind of rut. And then Syracuse, as we know, has these difference makers, albeit, and Brian mentioned this in the chat, like it was not this was kind of the feeling I had. It was not the stars for Syracuse that were deciding the game. It was the guys down the lineup because, Spleen is fantastic. But Zappatello, like, if you have success ones, like I said, like if Spleen put up 5 goals on Zappatello, like he'd be the best player in the country, like that's just. But in this Cuse's, I thought Cuse's adjustments in the second half were fantastic. They found like it was about the shorties. They had to target Maryland shorties. That was the weakness with Alex Wicks having an injury last week, and Eric Kohler's not there. So like Maryland was down shorties, and it was Luke Roa, and it was Michael Leo, and they just went at him and at him and at him, and then Maryland found something like, and it just so, but like it was like what 7-6, and and the game just hit a powder keg, and it just like popped off, and that's when it was like, like it felt very like, like Ryan we said, it was like it'd be like 10-9, kind of be tight. Maryland didn't really feel like they could score, and then Syracuse kept kind of scoring, but Maryland just answered, and it exploded, and that's what you get like, that's kind of like what happens with playoff games, which is kind of the vibe it had.
Go check on that oven before it explodes. Josh Rodenberg in the chat was saying, Syracuse fans shouldn't feel good until they actually win one of these. And I know this kind of does feel like kind of the Buffalo Bills look, Josh Allen looks great in a loss type of feel, but the Bills actually got to win something, to use an upstate New York comparison. So, yeah, Syracuse does have to, put one of these away soon. But I think what you saw tonight is the vibe is a lot better. It didn't feel like that Notre Dame game last year where, it was nice positive moment. It looked like it was having a nice positive momentum, but they just all discombobulated because they were still in it the whole time.
No, I mean, they could have won. I mean, like for sure.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Big Bill, they would have won.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I guess the question is like the whole thing with this game before is like, is Cuse back? Is Cuse back? Is Cuse back? And it's like, well, like, what is that? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, are you talking like, is Cuse a good team? Yes, they're a good team. Like I think that's obvious. Like, they were a good team last year, or pretty close to being a really good team. And they brought back a lot of good their young players, and they added some good pieces. The question is, like the only thing for Cuse fans, Ryan, like you know that this and Josh, I'm sure as well. Like being back means are we going to make the Final Four?
In terms of series, yeah.
And look, that's what it should be. I'm not like I don't like. Not to like put like insane amounts of pressure on this team, but like that's the standard at Cuse. It goes for Hopkins too. Like it was that for Maryland when Tillman took over. Even though he took over a different situation, they had made the quarterfinals. But like these are like legacy programs. Like back for them, it was with Lars of Virginia. Like when he was there. For these programs, like back is make the Final Four. Obviously, yeah. The question are they back? Is like even like for them is even if they had won, it's like are they back? Like. I don't now. Do I think they need like are you in a position listen, winning the game? There is a difference between winning and losing these games. 100%. I think Josh 100% right on that. Like you have to until you win them, you are just in a it's just different. Like it's as we saw like early. I think it was clear that there was a different like Syracuse clearly was facing a different level of competition, a different like the defense, a lot of the things that they were, trying to do offensively. Like Hiltz was trying to make those, kind of like flips, they kind of does like, they usually work. And it's like against this defense, no, like the competition, jump up was clear there. And there will probably be another climb of competition when they get to ACC play. And so obviously, yeah, like they got to win one of these games, and if you're going to make the Final Four, you're going to have to win these games. That's evident. But in terms of like, does this game, I think they're clearly in a different position than like they were 2 years ago, where it's like that game they played 2 years ago where, it was like, oh, they played really well against, Maryland in the Dome. It's like, and like that was kind of feel like wish casting it a little bit. It's like we were the first team to kind of keep it number one Maryland. This one is like no, like this was a back and forth, game the whole way, and I don't think they, kind of have anything to necessarily like obviously there are things they can get better at, but I don't think they came away with anything of like, wow, there's a a glaring weakness here, or or they're still this far away or anything like that. I mean, like could Cuse have put the game away? Sure. Maryland also could have put the game away at 5-2 when they had Cuse, like for 20 minutes, yeah, and they didn't score a goal. Like that's in these types of games, that's what happens.
And I think, before Safe goes, I think two other things that I think are good signs for both teams. I think one, Syracuse's defense stepping up like that, I think, is definitely a very good sign for the Orange, as well as face-off play. And then two, Maryland's offense having that stretch in the fourth quarter where they, strung together some goals. Because as you said, it's great opening script for the first quarter, and then things tended to slow down the past couple of games of the season. It was definitely like that in the second and third quarters, but then having that string together of goals, I think bodes well for the Terps as they grow as a team as well.
One thing I was going to say is like it just feels like the box score came up only I'd say that in quotes, but 7,300 felt like 8,000 to 9,000, like just the sound and the energy in the game. But I think that just kind of led to first really potent, explosive Cuse game in like maybe 5 years. Like I'm just like.
Yeah, not since before the COVID shutdown.
Oh, complete COVID, right? Like this is the last time we're like an elite team where, I mean, they had a couple games against Duke, but they always played Duke. It wasn't until recently where Duke even beat them at the Dome.
And that one last year,
there's a Virginia game.
Duke hit what, like 27 pipes?
Yeah, there was a Virginia game in 2019, but that was like even pre-Virginia, like Super Virginia. Like so, I mean, with Lars at least. So like this really felt like I said like one few times where like it was like Maryland. It was like, can we handle this? It was like yes, there was like a 2-goal spurt that kind of got Cuse back in the game with the non-releasable penalty. But like after that, like it felt like almost like Maryland was doing its best to just keep up. You know what I mean? Just like this was a really fast, explosive team and really potent and maybe didn't get as much production from the attack as they expected, but it's like the fact that they, other years, like if the Syracuse attack didn't produce, like this would have been like a 11-6, Maryland win. So like the fact that they were able to find other points from other players, like I said, like this is feels like vintage. I don't know, I'm not saying like, again, not to, like you said, Jay, not to pressure, but like a really good explosive Syracuse team that is rightful that their fans are excited about. So this is like, you want to win these games, but they haven't had one of these games, where we always say like they don't make them like this anymore. Like Syracuse hasn't been playing like this, hasn't been playing games like this for a little while. So I mean, just to be a fan of the sport and just that program in general, like it's just like I said, explosive, potent. That's when I think of Syracuse, and I haven't thought of those adjectives to use for Syracuse for a little while.
Yeah, I think it's less like moral victory and more just like like they yeah,
like
maybe that. Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, like it was like it's and it was a great game. Like and like they're punch for punch. Yeah, it's like like we always say, there's no moral victories. In here, like it's I don't think it. Yeah, but yeah, like this game, and also like Ryan said, it's like things you like questions you had about the team. Like I think you did get like Mason Cone. I mean that he went toe to toe with Luke Weirman for 60 minutes. Like there was, I guess, that kind of question, like coming up from Tufts, like where does he stack in? I mean, he was right there with Weirman, so that looks like a strength for the team. Like not just like oh, we've got I think everyone kind of knew they'd be better on faceoff because they were very bad last year, and you could like he was the best faceoff guy in D3. Like clearly he's gonna be good. Like no, he's probably maybe you do this with Weirman, and look, some of its styles, like maybe like no, he's probably gonna be like a top echelon faceoff guy in the country. All right, well that puts you in in these games with against Naso or Little Lynch and Gabriel UVA and who you're going to see the rest of the way, or in the Army game the 20th Will Coletti, and then Ryan mentioned like the kind of like some of like the shorties like defensively, like they didn't get they held in there on some of those matchups. And look, there will be Maryland, like there will be tougher matchups than Maryland, but nonetheless, like the hung there and like offensively they made adjustments, like in this. So like I think there's like some specific areas on the field maybe you were like concerned about that were good. And Maryland for like I think same thing. Sorry, is the shorties did struggle. Like they did. Like Syracuse attacked them repeatedly in that second half. But they hung in there. George Stamos gets the winning, goal at the end. Maryland's offense is able to, like Ryan said, come up with 4 goals in like 5 goals in the last 12 possessions to end that game. So I think both teams, obviously a lot to work on, but got like questions, positive out of that. And I think that's where you come away feeling good.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, and one other thing that I liked out of the Orange, getting that secondary scoring cooking. I think was big too. Yeah. I mean, Spallina had a goal, but going up against, he has Epitel on him, right? Yeah. But seeing Leo having a game that he had, Roa too. Yeah, Leo and Roa having a game like that is definitely a positive sign for those games where Spallina's getting shut down, where Stevens or the rest of the crews, not having the best night. Yeah. It's great to have that secondary scoring, which is a good sign too. And I think for Maryland too, I mean, obviously, great goaltending. McEnany, won that game for the Terps as well, like he does oftentimes. But if you're the Terps, that's the battle test you need, because I mean, the way that they've got some more big tests up ahead. They got a Princeton team, which again is going to be the mystery bag of this season, and then they got to go on the road to South Bend, and then they got 2 weeks later against Virginia. So this is the battle test that they needed heading into this rough April that's up ahead with Notre Dame and Virginia looming, and Big Ten plays looking more and more manageable with each week for the Terps, but you want to be battle tested for those other non-con games, plus for the NCAA tournament later on, especially if the Big Ten isn't as up to snub as they have in the past couple of years.
No, I mean that'll be a grind. I mean, you got.
I'm sure that the rest of the conference is going to step up. I mean, Penn State's definitely recovered since their loss.
Yeah, Penn State's in there. Michigan. We'll see. But yeah, I think it was. Look, it was just the game just rocked. I mean, it was just fourth quarter you had 8-7, so 15 winds up being 10 goals. Fourth quarter in overtime. Crowd was fantastic. Both goalies played. I mean, McNaney made more saves. Will Mark made more spectacular saves, which is what you would have expected. I mean, McNaney is, steady. She's as Eddie, like he's just always on it. But yeah, it was just both games. The women's game, Maryland,
the women's game
earlier.
Too, yeah.
I mean, some of the possessions there at the end were
very defensive. You usually don't see a very defensive game among the top programs in women's lacrosse anymore, but that one was very defensive.
Two OT games with these top programs.
Worth your money, definitely today.
Great crowd. National TV spot, obviously ESPNU for the second game. On February 17th, President's Day weekend. This is what you want.
Yeah.
Like this is, as I said, this is the good shit.
Yeah, and this game was, being hyped up so much, and you were expecting a letdown because any Syracuse game that's been hyped up the past couple of years falls flat. But no, this game lived up to the hype and more. And I think if we get more games like that this season, we're in for a huge treat if we get these high-profile games delivering. And we saw that last year, the Maryland-Virginia, Maryland-Notre Dame, the semifinals in the NCAA tournament. The big games delivered last year. And if we're continuing that trend this year, we're in really good shape. And I think that's going to make the season all the more interesting and, be a place to make new fans in the process. I mean, it showed with the ratings at the Final Four last year, and if we can continue to get that positive trajectory with games like that, it's great. Yeah.
Awesome.
And also big, before we get to the other men's games, huge upset last night. Notre Dame beating Northwestern last night in South Bend. Huge upset in the women's side.
It's a good time to be an Irish fan. All right, where are we going next?
Where do we go next? I think the other, the one that jumps out is that Army-Rutgers game. Army 16, Rutgers 7. Black Knights are for real.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cuse game is going to be. We said, me and Safe said it on the pod. Like, we're going to learn. I don't know. It's not everything with Army that there is, but like, basically, it kind of defines like their sort of path forward. If they went 0-2, we would have known what their path forward was, and we kind of knew where they stacked up. If they went 2-0, I think we really would have known their path. Like, that would we have an idea, what kind of this team can be. And if they go 1-1, it's a little more, I guess murky. And so Rutgers, one, like they lost, Rutgers defense, we said, is kind of iffy, like goalie questions, and then lose Peter Rizzotti. This Rutgers team it's not the 12th best team in the country. Is it still a top 20 team? Maybe, but it's not like
that injury report bombshell.
Oh God, yeah. There's a lot of injuries early in the year. Like just a lot of guys missing games, and it's unfortunate. Obviously, it feels. I mean, we should get more. Like the lack of the waiting until an hour before face-off to drop these injury reports. The way it works is I don't know, learning two-thirds of Yale's attack potential have season-ending or significant injuries is what what are we what are we doing here? How is that? The Granamet one all those years back. It's Penn State, Granamet will not be playing. It's and then he winds up out for the entire year. It's just yeah. I mean, it wasn't expected that moment there was going to be an entire year injury, but still. So yeah, this was Rutgers got kind of on them too early, and both offenses were, because we meant goalie play was kind of going to be a question here, and both offenses really putting it in on kind of all their shots. And then Army, it was 3-3, and then Army just like took it over. I mean, just dump trucked them. They started to get the edge on faceoffs. They still, weren't getting didn't get a lot of saves, but got enough. And just execution. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, it was just a dominant performance. Yeah, they just put a whooping on them when they took control of the game. They never really let go. And then you got the top guys on this team. We knew Evan Plunkett, Jacob Morin, Gunnar Fellows, Reese Burke. Those guys come back from last year. Plunkett 6 points, Morin a hat trick, Fellows a hat trick, Burek 2 goals, but then Jackson Eichert, new guy coming a hat trick. So 4 guys with hat tricks. I mean, just yeah. I mean, this is a really, really strong Army offense. They're going to cause some problems, and the best kind of cure for a questionable maybe defense goalie potentially is that face-off guy, and they have that with Coletti. So it's going to be, I think, definitely a very interesting game with Q's. It's not going to have the hype maybe you'd want around it because it's going to be a midweek game, but that should definitely be really exciting. There's a really strong, I think, team with a lot of potential, a different Army team, I think, because the way we kind of perceive Army teams is usually defense and kind of grounded. But I think they've got as kind of Nick Turn was the best Army player, kind of, I think, in terms of but I think they got more talent this year than I can recall an Army team having. Maybe I won't say ever. Not well. Obviously not ever because we go historically, but at least in recent memory, I think so. That I can recall.
This series is the weekend pretty close. I mean, it's usually like a 1-goal game. At least I've know recently, and Rutgers, at least last 5 years, don't have much winning success. But last 5 years, whenever they played at home, were able to pull out the victory. So for Army to win in such a dominant fashion and just pull away, we were all in the chat pretty close, and then kind of pay attention to some other games, and all of a sudden Army's up 6 or 7. So it's just something that we don't really expect from an Army team, but probably maybe as a sign of things to come, that this is a team that may be kind of really built for the long haul. And this is probably going to be a top 6 team in our poll. I mean, I don't want to predict for everybody else, but top 5, top 6. So Army definitely looks for real.
Elsewhere, we had Virginia in their proverbial trap game against Richmond, but they come out on top 14-10. So again, we keep on talking about the Spiders and these early season opportunities, and they play a top team close, but they can't seal the deal. But for Virginia, that's a very good win in a very raucous environment. They second largest crowd in Richmond program history, behind only their inaugural game. So really good crowd there in Richmond today. So kudos to the Spiders fans as well as the Hoos fans that filled it up. But for Virginia, that's kind of their first big test after blowing the doors off of Michigan last week. Now they're a bit battle tested with a hard-fought road win.
Shig, what point was that where I think it was behind the back? The beginning of the third quarter, right after the halftime. It just seemed like Richmond, jumped out to a 2-goal lead, but then just never really could increase it. And then with Virginia, we always kind of say it Virginia has a knack of forcing you to expend a ton of energy to get goals, and then they can get 2 or 3 within 90 seconds and just totally deflate. So what would have been a strong quarter where you're going in with a 2 or 3 goal lead, all of a sudden it's a tie game, or maybe even down by 1, and it's just so deflating. I remember North Carolina used to do that routinely at Hopkins whenever they played at Homewood. It's just, it's just a good example of that. You have one side kind of just chugging along, long possession, maybe get a goal here or there, and then Virginia like rats off like 2 or 3 and just like totally takes the air out of the game in the stadium. So this is kind of what Lawrence does, and Richmond covered. So for some people that's, but yeah, like for the wins and losses, this is again just a big time opponent at home that you were in the game, but just not able really to close the deal.
Yeah, it's tough. Richmond, I was impressed. Early Richmond's defense was really holding up. They only Riviere only had like 2 kind of 6-on-6 goals. Like Cormier was really quiet, and then of course he wound up breaking the all-time Virginia goals record later in the game. But they were and then Virginia got a fast break goal to make it, I think, 3-3. And then they got 2 quick goals after that. And then we always talk about Virginia. What do you gotta control? Any fast break transition, easy goals. Anything Virginia gets that's easy is bad for you, because like you said, they make it so hard for you to score. They make it so hard for you to sustain momentum. Especially that they used to do this when Petey was there, because you could never get a run on kind of like face-offs. And it's kind of similar, still with Gabriel, won 15-26. He struggled early, but really got to go in the second half. So they struggle for you to kind of maintain that kind of momentum. And then, it went from 3-2 Richmond to 5-3 UVA really quick. And you kind of thought, now, I've seen this movie before. This is how teams go from being in it against UVA to then, that kind of the maelstrom comes, the avalanche. But Richmond kept hanging in there. And then it was 7-5, and UVA scores with a hidden ball trick on the first play of the second half. Here we go again, another kind of weird goal, kind of but Richmond kept home, and they attacked Virginia in transition a lot, which is interesting. I kind of wonder, I mentioned this on Twitter, Virginia's lost a lot of guys in that defensive midfield over the last couple of years. Jared Connors after 2021, they lost Grayson Soliday last year. A lot of depth as well. They were always really deep. I wonder, and listen, some transition defense is just it's a thing that comes, it can be a work in progress. I think we saw that. The end of the Maryland Cuse game, like a kind of transition moment. Cuse, Carp got mentioned. Cuse just wasn't really alert, and kind of cost them. Which is interesting in that game, the Maryland Cuse game, wasn't really a transition game at all. Everything was just kind of sort of 6-on-6.
Everything was half field.
I think. Yeah, everything was half field. Maryland got 2 transition goals, one at 11-9, and then one, obviously the winner. That kind of made the difference. Yeah. Anyhow, it can be a work in progress. So Virginia, certainly can get better at it, and Lars, the defense obviously is very much his domain in Charlottesville. But I wonder, just kind of losing those guys as that attrition kind of taking its toll there. And they tied it up. They got it to, it was either 8-8 or 9-9. But it's just, it's always hard when you're the underdog, and it's one thing when you're the underdog to play from ahead. You want to play from ahead because you kind of, especially at home, you feed off the crowd. You can sort of sustain any moments that you have. When you're underdog and you play from behind, it's effort anyway just to get tied, and you have to work so hard to score, and then it's all right, we get tied, oop, go behind again, and then it's just kind of it just takes the wind out of you, and after that, I was impressed with Richmond. I've been impressed. I think their defense in these 2 games I've seen against Richmond and against their 2 games against Virginia and Maryland, has played some good lacrosse. Maryland, they play really good defense. Against Virginia, a -10 possession advantage, and you hold Virginia, 14. That's a solid effort. But it's at a certain point, obviously we kind of mentioned, this was different. This wasn't one that they ever really kind of had a shot to win. But it's you do want to win these games, especially with a kind of historic crowd. And but I I get the feeling they're a team we'll be seeing towards the end of the year, kind of with what I've seen. Like I thought, on offense, some of the guys really flashed as well. I thought Aiden O'Neal, he only had a goal and assist, but I saw some good things from him. Dalton Young, obviously, is kind of the
they're
star
going to be in the
of
mix
show
come
there.
A10 time.
Oh yeah, I think they're the best of the A10 teams.
Yeah, they're establishing themselves the best in the A10.
Yeah, the best I've seen so far. So yeah, I mean, it's tough not getting Maryland and Virginia at home and not coming away from them. The Maryland one is probably the one they'll definitely look back end of the year and be like, probably should have had that one. But I think from what I've seen in those two games, I think they've shown it's a solid team there once again for Shmoney.
Where do we want to go next? Charles Street Derby or Georgetown Penn?
Safe. What do you think?
Well, we missed so much of Georgetown Penn because of
technical difficulties, baby.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was joking around in the chat. I never want to hear anyone talk about Big Ten Plus anymore after this more.
Well, don't worry. Next year it's going to be in the same streaming service as ESPN Plus. They're all going to be together.
They're all going to be one big family.
Yeah, consolidation, baby.
But the Hop games, I felt really encouraged because I felt like this was going to be just kind of a rock fight with Loyola having won last year, and to just they travel well. It almost felt like a Loyola home game there at Homewood. But Hopkins' ability to not only prevent a collapse, but excel at the end to where they win by 6 in a game where, especially with the way Loyola was just playing desperate towards the end, that they could have clawed back by 2 or 3 and just kind of made it relatively, much more, nerve-wracking for any Hopkins fan. But Hopkins to close and win by kind of going away at the very end was definitely encouraging. If you're a Jays fan, probably feel that game against Denver, is obviously painful, but I think with losses, you say there's never a good loss, but you've learned. I think Hopkins is no, okay, we're up 3 or 4. These teams aren't gonna just give up. We have to put if you're a Hopkins player, have to put foot on their neck, try not to be violent imagery, but have to actually take them out and get that killer instinct. I think is going to be something useful going on for them later on. So yeah, I don't want to get too excited. Loyola, I think that while having a great game against Georgetown early in the year, having a kind of a not that great offensive game against Maryland last week, and again probably not as efficient as Toomey would like. Maybe that first game against Georgetown was a little bit of not illusion, but there's a really good offensive day that day. So, but if you're a Jays fan, you still got to be encouraged now. 3-1, looking for going to I think North Carolina's next game. So yeah, if you're a Hopkins fan, it's a good day to be a Blue Jay. One, I kind of made a little jokes with Alexi, going to be smoking those Loyola packs tonight. But yeah, good time if you're a Hopkins fan.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, at Carolina. Hopkins goes at Carolina, at Virginia, and then to Charlotte for the Cuse game.
Still angry at that being a neutral.
Sorry, Ryan.
Yes.
I should have mentioned that. That's on me.
Yeah.
It's on me. That was probably too much for him.
Loyola is kind of an enigma to figure out, though. Again, the big win against Georgetown the first week, then complete egg against Maryland on offense. And then today they were, for the first 2.5, 3 quarters, it was looking like, okay, they're muddying it up with Hopkins. They're in it. And then the bottom fell out in the fourth. They're a weird team to figure out, the Greyhounds.
Do you feel better about Loyola after these 3 games than you did about the first 2 games last year when they beat Maryland and Hopkins? I mean, I know that feels like an insane question because after they beat Maryland Hopkins, it's Loyola top 5 team. I don't know. There was really a sense because immediately after those 2 games, how about this? After Loyola's first 3 games last year, they had beaten Maryland and Hopkins, and then they lost 10-6 to Rutgers. After these 3 games, they've blown out Georgetown, who since played Hopkins really close and beat Penn. They've lost to Maryland, and then they've kind of played this, rock fight with Hopkins. I don't know that I have really any idea what I think of Loyola. I do know, though, that after 3 games after they lost that Rutgers game, I sort of was getting the vibe of, like, I don't know that in the Hopkins games, that was the true indication of that team. And then they played Towson and won by 1 goal in a game Towson probably should have won. And then they played Lafayette and won 15-11. And it was like, okay, that's a little. And then they lost by 8 to Duke, and it was like, all right, yeah. Yeah, I really don't. I don't know. They play Rutgers next week. They should win that game. They should beat Rutgers at Ridley. If they can beat them, a solid win. I think, and then they play Towson in a midweek at home, which could be, an interesting game. Towson just demolished Navy today.
Yeah, the era of good feelings for the midshipmen. Rest in peace, February 3rd to February 7th.
Good day to be Jake. Yeah. So I do think we'll kind of get an idea of, like, they are a weird team. I do like this game was Hopkins Loyola. Maryland Cuse, there's goals. The goalies are making, Mark is just like leaping in the air and making saves. We're getting, some transition goals there at the end, exhilarating action. It's everything you're promised. Hopkins and Loyola are just hitting the crap out of each other. It's 3-3 through and 7-7 late, into like the deep third quarter. The teams are throwing the ball around just everywhere.
Yeah.
They're racking up like Ty Domi levels of penalty minutes. In some ways it really was a kind of like revolting lacrosse game. Needless to say, I absolutely loved it.
Just love mucking it up. Gil in the chat says, I think Loyola has a decent defense, and that's all I know about them.
Yes.
That sounds about right.
I agree. Yeah.
Everything else is one. Who's to say?
Yeah. I do think their defense is. I think that's one thing, at least you can kind of, like, last year, Loyola's defense, like, early in the year, was like that Duke game. I remember, I'm like, oh my, like, what is going on? Like, that's not Loyola. Like, it was like they were just getting carved up. I do think their defense, is really good. Other than that, and listen, that's their defense is really good. I think they, in the middle of the field, I thought, say if you can mention this Georgetown game, they look more like Loyola does. Kind of like in some, they're, with some of those, the shorties. Mustang Sally he's a vibes player. Like he just kind of does stuff sometimes. I appreciate it, but so I do think they feel more like a Loyola team than they have in the past. But yeah, they did which I guess is good because like when
Loyola, they're good. Yeah.
Loyola teams are, yeah, when they're close to themselves are good. But yeah, I think Gil kind of nailed it. Like I don't kind of know a lot. Yeah, we'll see. I guess.
In Philly, so we'll jump now to the other game we were going on to. Georgetown finally rebounds, gets a 12-9 victory over Penn. It looked like we were almost going to have a Quakering, but then the Hoyas put it away in the fourth. Another kind of weird game because the Hoyas were blowing the doors off of Penn for quite a while, and then Penn crawled back into it, and it looked like, oh, here we go again. Typical Penn Quaker lacrosse game, and then Georgetown put it away late, though. So Hoyas finally get into the win column with a much-needed victory there. Overall, kind of a weird day for the Ivy League. We'll get into that with the scores because there are some whoppers,
hey.
But then there are also some good performances.
Yeah. So interesting. Penn looked like, I guess, the first quarter looked like they hadn't played lacrosse later, which obviously they hadn't. And then after that, it was better. Georgetown's similar to Loyola, I think. Some like their defenses, I think it's coming along after that. For the first game, was awful. Like they were. But Anderson Moore, their freshman goalie, made some big saves late in that game. They held Hopkins in check. They played, held Penn to 9. So I think their team's kind of coming around. Offensively, Graham Bundy had his first big game. Aiden Carroll showed some good stuff. So I think they're coming around. Like they're going to be a work in progress. It's going to be, and last year's team was too. But last year's team was able to figure out kind of quickly because they had like fifth-year seniors, and really good fifth-year seniors. This year's team has some experienced guys, but not quite as explosive on offense. So, got caught flat, like they just came out bad and dug themselves a 5-goal hole, and that was kind of it. Georgetown seems to, have done a pretty solid job at replacing James Riley. At the dot, like that team was a big kind of concern for them, and they won 71% of the faceoffs today. So that's that was what kind of seems like a big potential weakness, especially with going up against Denver because they got Staphicus. So that's solid. But yeah, I think does Georgetown have someone from Notre Dame next week? I don't think
probably
so.
Not.
But yeah, probably not. But I think I think they're coming along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a work in progress. Things that look good to see that 9 people got points, 7 of them actually scored goals. TJ Haley, I think we would all love to see him find the back of the net, but the guy's a magician with the passes. 5 assists. You can't hit on a kid when he's making that production. So yeah, but when we were at the pod, Jake, you asked me what I felt. I was like, I felt it was going to be like a 2 or 3 goal game where Georgetown kind of won, but Penn, was still kind of finding its way as well. So I think Georgetown, though, defense is some kind of been their calling card. They I like their goalie. I think he was pretty strong at certain points. Ball, as you noted, at face-off, he alone, he had 74%. And then, they went 0-1 with one other person at the dot. So good at face-off, good at defense, offense work in progress. This is the kind of team that I think mid-season, Big East time when they're actually playing, for the conference regular season and then tournament. They should be right there. And Denver being kind of a top 10 team that's going to make for an exciting, conference play. So. Yeah, but I think Georgetown's going to still, you're going to have to go through Georgetown, obviously, if you're Denver, to take the crown from them. But I think they're going to be, pretty solid team, maybe more defensive oriented in possession, but still a team that is going to be formidable for any team outside of the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Denver, speaking of which, today impressive victory over Utah on the road in Salt Lake City, 16-8.
Oh my God, Utes, what's going on? We get all.
Yeah, Jake, time check, because then I'll read off the scores, and then we can just pick out what else jumped out of mind. I'll run through the scoreboard for a second.
We got 10 minutes, so if you're in the chat, anything you want us to touch on, throw it at us.
Yep. I'll run down the scoreboard first, and then we'll see which one of those caught our eye. Also, worth pointing out, last night we did have an upset with Bryant over BU, 12-6, and the Bulldogs dominated that whole game. That was a bit of a surprise given how BU looked to start the season. So we would be remiss if we didn't speak about that one. Drexel 11-10 over UMBC in double OT, and High Point beat VMI 19-9. That was last night's action. Today, Canisius and Bellarmine in a pretty tight-knit game. Griffs win that 8-7. Binghamton with a comeback victory over St. Bonaventure 13-12 in overtime. Safe's favorite, Quinnipiac Bobcats 13-7 over Brown.
Bobcat Nation.
As we said, today was a bit of a roller coaster for the Ivy League. Couple that with Dartmouth losing to Bucknell 15-13.
Down big at one point in that game.
What's up?
Wasn't Dartmouth behind like
a ton.
5 or 6 nothing?
Yeah, they were down like
it was 5-0.
Yeah, they were down big in that. So they did make a game out of it, but the Bison come around and win that. Duke 19-10 over St. Joe's. It was looking close in the first half in that one. Then the Blue Devils really step on the gas in the second half to that was another game where it's like, whoa, we're commenting, woo, this is close. St. Joe's is taking leads, and then second half comes and it's like we take a second look at it after taking a look at another game for a few minutes, and it's like, wait a second, Duke's blowing them out.
Duke's non-con, like, I mean, like High Point St. Joe's, solid. Like, I need to see Duke play like a, top 10 team. like they play Penn in 2 weeks. I mean, like, and then they play Princeton 2 games in 3 days. Duke doesn't play a team currently ranked in the top 10 till Syracuse March 20th. Like, it's crazy, like their start to the season. No, just like,
I mean, there's one way to avoid February Duke.
Kind of like, hey, come on. I need Duke. I just it feels like they're just like on the like they're not like involved in the season so far.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, they're number one and they're blowing out teams, but
it's weird.
It's weird. Lafayette beats Hampton 22-2. Hofstra beats Siena 14-12. Don't look now, but Hofstra's 3-1. Don't look at who they've played. Holy Crosse over Sacred Heart 10-9 in another game that was close all the way through. Vermont beats Manhattan.
Holy Crosse.
Holy Crosse.
What's that? Is that 2-1?
2-1, yeah.
First time in a while. It's been a while. We mentioned the pod. Like, that's a long time for Holy Crosse.
We may have a world where Holy Crosse and NJIT are 5-1 combined.
Hell yeah.
NJIT plays tomorrow because of some snow outs today with the snow that hit the New York metro area. So Princeton Monmouth got moved to tomorrow and also moved from Monmouth to Princeton because 2 schools an hour apart. I guess for some reason had to reverse the travel. I don't know. I guess the plows at Monmouth broke or something. I don't know. Vermont beat Manhattan 12-9, speaking of which, in a game that was delayed by snow. We mentioned it earlier. Towson blows out Navy 17-5, so the Navy FanLax thread is back to being entertaining after that one. Penn State. Yeah, sorry, you gonna go? Yep.
Oh, I was just saying, beat them down.
Penn State on the road in Stony Brook on Long Island. They win 14-10. Again, getting things back in the right direction.
The flow stream of this game, I sort of like. So I think Jeremy Ferris like this looked like it was filmed with like the panel of the International Space Station. I thought like I could at some points I could see like the inside of the press box.
They ain't open up the window on a day like this. It's cold out.
It was.
Unfortunately, we have to deal with Ohio with Safe saying we got to make sure that he seeks help because Ohio State's 4-0 now. They beat Air Force 12-4, so we gotta calmly prepare Safe for the fact that Ohio State's playing Virginia next week, and we got to talk him out of whatever ledge he's gonna try to lead us in.
Listen. We just got to hit one. Them or Notre Dame. One of those two. Cornell. But yeah, no.
Ohio State hasn't given up. Ohio State hasn't given up more than 10 double digits yet. I don't know. I don't know if you can really read anything into that.
Air Force is a solid. I mean, Air Force is 0-3, but they played Denver tight.
Yeah.
I promise. I vowed. I was like, I would not put them in my top 20 unless they started.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, you got to put Ohio State in by default, as well as one other brand name conference team, which we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
Colgate beats Albany 11-10.
All right, pick it up.
Delaware beats St. John 17-6. Michigan and Hobart was another one of these games that was close in the first half. Then we turn our eyes off of it for a few minutes, and then it was a beat 'em down from there on out. Michigan beats Hobart 18-8. Shout out to friend of the pod, Coach Wilkes. Marist 9-8 victory over Marist in overtime. Over Jacksonville, yeah. Marist over Jacksonville 9-8. Shout out to the Lemoyne Dolphins. First ever D1 game, first ever D1 win. 17-6 victory over Wagner. So shout out to Lemoyne right off the bat with it. Speaking of, yes, programs that are skating by on their conference affiliation and past reputation that we now got to default put into the top 20. Right. North Carolina 9, Fairfield 8. 19-8, yeah.
19-8.
Yeah.
It wasn't close.
LIU with a pretty impressive victory over Merrimack, 10-8, because, Merrimack off to a good start to the season with wins over Bucknell and Sacred Heart. But the Sharks get the victory there over Merrimack. UMass wins the UMass Derby over UMass Lowell 10-7. Riverhawks were actually looking pretty tough in this game, but Minutemen pull away towards the end. Cornell opens up their season 17-13 victory over Lehigh. Off to a fast start. Lehigh clawed back into it, and actually at one point I think it was tied in the second half, but then the Big Red pull away towards the end. Harvard pours it on against Providence, 23-7 victory in that one. And Yale beats Villanova 13-11. Another one of these games that, actually in this case, Yale was off to a fast start, but Villanova crept in a little bit more. But again, Yale, again, going to be interesting on what they do the rest of the year. Yeah.
Offensively. Yeah. I think they'll be okay. I think they got, they were able to, when they need the goals, they got it. They got talent there. To me, it's going to come down. It's still going to be the answer for them as the defense. They had some, I mean, the other injuries offensively, I think they can overcome it. I mean, look, you don't want it. Like Leo Johnson, a great player, like that would hurt. If Lyons is out as well, though his didn't seem as, I mean, look, anytime you can have an injury where it's like, we don't know the timetable, like that's not great, though it didn't seem to be like Johnson seemed like season ending. But I think to me it still just comes out of the defense. Like if that defense is going to be at a top 10 level, like they'll be in the Final Four conversation. If it's top 20, I still think they could be an upset bid like team that can get to a quarterfinal and do it. If it's where it's been at, I think they're unfortunately and then kind of wasting these sorts of opportunities these last couple of years because explosive that offense is. So I think the offense will be fine. I think it's still going to come down to that defense. Even
Gil just had two other comments. He said one, he needed a telescope to watch Penn State. Again, the perils of early season college lacrosse. You got that. You got Maryland's from space. You got Stony Brook inside the press box with the reflections. You got Notre Dame's one that you can only turn on 30-degree angles indoors.
Yeah. Probably get that tomorrow.
And he also has a hot take. He says Richmond only loses one more game this year.
So I'm guessing he thinks they beat Georgetown?
I would assume that would be right if they only have if that is.
Because they got Duke and Georgetown at home. I would go 2 at least. Like I think, I feel like they lose 1 in A-10 too, maybe on the road, but they could be favored. Like they'll be favored a lot the rest of the way. I think for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hour.
Yeah.
I got I'll pose one to us on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, what's the game of the week? We got Denver Cornell, Maryland Princeton, Virginia Ohio State, Notre Dame Georgetown.
Got to go Cornell Denver. That's a top 10 matchup. Yeah, I think it's Cornell Denver.
That's pretty good, yeah.
I think.
But I do like Princeton, Maryland.
Again, it's going to be the mystery bag of the Princeton Tigers. We'll see. Tomorrow is going to be kind of our first look to finally see what ceiling we're looking at with them.
You're right, Ryan. And that'll be 3 games in shorter period of time. I mean,
yeah.
they were playing Tuesday already, so they're going to play Sunday, Tuesday, and then Saturday traveling down to Maryland.
Do they push that?
Tuesday game?
Do they maybe push that back? I mean, you can play 2 games in 3 days. I mean, I think them.
I mean, Monmouth is a sneaky game though for them. Remember that year they lost to Monmouth as well, so that's not exactly a game. I mean, Manhattan is a game where they shouldn't have any issue with.
Manhattan last year was the reverse, if you remember. Mm-hmm. They beat Monmouth they handled them, but Manhattan, I think it was Joseph Persico in goal, stood on his head. They beat Manhattan by 5. It was, kind of sneaky, a close one. Midweek as well. I think they'll kind of probably take care of both. My gut. And then we'll just sort of get a real kind of first taste of it with the Maryland and on the road.
Yeah, a lot of midweek games this week. So you got Tuesday alone: Albany, Penn, BU Brown, Marist, UMass, VMI Hampton, Robert Morris, St. Bonaventure, Canisius Hobart, Manhattan, Princeton, Bryant, Harvard. Now it looks like a way bigger game than it was before, and Drexel, Lafayette. And then Wednesday you got Utah, Syracuse. You got Colgate, Yale. I mean, Colgate's looking like an interesting team. I know they got blown up by Cuse, but still, that's kind of interesting. A lot of midweek games.
Colgate's got Yale, Nova, and then they play Loyola. Their schedule is very front loaded. Especially Patriot League. They start with Loyola. But I mean, they end with Lehigh, Holy Cross, BU. That's kind of tough.
And Army, Lehigh, Holy Cross.
They got some chances in there. I think I think Colgate has kind of put themselves in position like a Patriot League tournament team this year potentially. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, and then also Friday night, quite a few games too. Siena, UMass, Lowell, Towson, St. Joe's. That's going to be a interesting Friday evening one.
Towson needs to win that game.
Yeah, so Towson, St. Joe's.
Towson needs to beat St. Joe's. Loyola, Ridley. Look, winning it would be big. Winning it would be significant. Towson hasn't beat Loyola, or they beat Loyola in 2022, 11-8 at Ridley. Last time was there, that was, that obviously, haven't beat Hop in a while. So Towson needs one of these big wins against, I talk about in-state. I talked about the Navy Towson game is kind of like a potential swing game for these schools. I think this could be for Towson, this kind of blowout. St. Joe's, I think they got to get that one. Because if you can get that one, you go 3-1. Even if you lose Loyola, you can beat UMBC. You get Virginia at home. But there's a chance if you could beat St. Joe's and Loyola and beat UMBC, you could have a big crowd. Screw it. I'll go on the record. If they beat St. Joe's, Loyola, and UMBC, I will be there when they play Virginia.
No matter what.
But do I think it happens? I think they'll probably lose one of them. But no, I'll be there if they're 5-1 they play Virginia. But either way, you don't have to be. I'm not saying it, but if you could just get to 4, if you only one loss over this next 3, or even the next 4, I should say, or even 2, sets you up at 4-3 going into CAA play, or you got Drexel, Fairfield, Stony Brook, Hops this. They got a chance. Delaware's the last CAA game for them. They should be favored in in these most CAA games if they can continue this momentum. So, but yeah.
And then
I'm with you guys. I think Cornell Denver is. Oh yeah, Duke Jacksonville.
Yeah, Duke Jacksonville. That's always been a tough one for Duke.
It has been. It's true.
So yeah, a lot going on.
I think Cornell Denver is the. Yeah, Cornell's defense losing Adler and Ireland seemed to struggle with Lehigh a little, and Denver's offense has shown some positive signs.
Mm-hmm. Gil also added that Hopkins Carolina is his most interesting.
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be interesting.
How did I forget that one? Yeah, I don't know how I forgot that one. So I think that one too. Yeah,
Cornell Denver is going to be our game of the week, but I think there's a lot of good pick 'em.
I'd still probably go Cornell Denver. But yeah, Hopkins Carolina I think is also. I think it's a big test for Carolina. Hopkins. You want to win that one if you're Hopkins. Like really, because I don't think you going into that Virginia Q stretch. I think being what are they now? Is Hopkins 4-1 safe? 3-1?
3-1.
3-1. I think being 4-1 going into that Virginia Q stretch, I think is where you want to sit. Maybe split those. But even if you lose both, you still be over 500. I think that's where you I really want to sit. But yeah, next week, maybe not a single game is this as good as this one was, but hopefully we can get some, bulk quantity. That would be great.
So we thank you all for joining us on YouTube for this one. If you liked it, subscribe on YouTube. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled one next week, more than likely. This one, we weren't planning on it, but we sure as heck had fun doing it. So subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to our Patreon at the Crosse Commission. $6 a month gets you all sorts of great exclusives, including Jake's got a couple columns pumping out now for in-depth looks into some of the big games of the week.
Yes. Tomorrow, College Crosse Commission College Crosse Team of the Week for this weekend. Check it out tomorrow. Subscribe. $6.
Yep. And you can also subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, streaming or downloading, at the Crosse Commission. You can also follow the Crosse Commission on Twitter at college_crosse. You can follow me at RyanMcD29.
I'm at _Razan. There you go.
Yes. So thank you guys for joining us for the Saturday Night Power Hour. Midweek, we'll preview the games. I should be able to hop on this week as well because I am on vacation. So I should be able. Yeah.
Vacation Ryan. That's our favorite Ryan.
I will be going to the Stars Rangers game on Tuesday night, and I am planning on wearing the official outfit of being a Ranger fan. Even though I'm an Islander fan, I'm definitely not rooting for the Rangers.
Oh, no. He's going to do it.
Columbia vest over a collared shirt, baby.
Love to see it.
And on that note, thank you for listening or watching, and we'll catch you around. As always, stay hydrated.